say thank you all for being here. My name is Sydney. I am from A&U Youth Mental Health. And first of all, I just want to give a big shout out to Dogpound for everything they've done to help us put this event on. And all of the speakers and Therabody and Miss Lymph and Thrive Market, Chlorophyll Water, Sift Bakery, Mad Tasty, Shaman Robin, all of the sponsors have been amazing. So I want to start off the afternoon if everyone can just close their eyes for a second. Close them. Okay, now take a second and put your hands up if you or someone close to you has ever experienced a mental health challenge. Okay, now keep your hands up and open your eyes. So clearly that's a lot of us. I think every single person in this room. And that just reaffirms the stats that 1 in 4 youth and 1 in 5 people struggle with mental health. So thank you all for being here. That's why we're here. AIM is a nonprofit that is working to bridge the gap between research and access to care for youth struggling with their mental health. We fund clinical research to find the best treatments. We empower youth to find their own mental health solutions through our AIM Ideas Lab, and we train caring adults in mental health first aid training. So if those are any of those 3 categories resonate with you, feel free to reach out to me or our website and look up what we do. So I'm going to get us started. I'm going to introduce Jessica Stone, the lovely Jessica, who's going to lead us in a little meditation to ground us. Thank you, Jessica.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jessica, as she said. I'm going to be leading you guys through meditation. It is something I practice, teach. I'm also Reiki master, author, Harvard certified in psychedelic assisted therapies. And really, I think as far as my professional life, I'm put on this earth to maximize the human potential. And I love AIM so much. I think our mental health, we can be here in this room together and feel so isolated, yet in the most crowded room. So obviously you guys have been active today. You've been, moving the body. Our body is such a powerful tool. And so I want to kind of keep it in this active place, doing an active meditation today. So we're going to first create a group of energy. When we do this, when we play with this place, I don't know if you've heard of quantum entanglement, but basically we have the ability, if we're all hooked up to EEG machines, to be having a collective experience. And in that collective experience, sometimes, words, we don't have the best words to say, hey, I'm feeling isolated, or hey, I'm feeling like a leader today. So just with this seated group, we're going to go around and I want everybody to say just how they're feeling today. And we'll start with that, and then we'll hop into meditation within it, and I'll take it from there. But will you start? How are you doing today?
Great, thank you.
Perfect. If you want to say a word that represents it, so great, well. Okay.
Grateful. Full, excited, calm. Welcome. Excited, grateful.
Anxious. Wonderful. Attentive.
Inspired.
Intrigued.
Anxious, excited.
Rejuvenated. Nauseous.
Where was nauseous? Wonderful. And so in this microcosm, if you spread it out into this larger room, and then we spread it out into this neighborhood, and you spread it out into LA, and you spread it out into California and across, you would find actually just complete reflections and mirror of yourself happening over and over. And it's that place of, it was kind of cool hearing everybody's experience in here. And I think maybe because a lot of you moved your body, how it does create this, boost. So that's pretty incredible to hear that. And we're going to get into a meditation. I'm going to lead you guys through a mindfulness body scan. Actually, let's go energy scan, because you guys were so good in the body. Let's go energetic. You do not need to know anything about the chakras, what we're about to jump into. You naturally will start leading into it. And I like this one meditation that I was deep in meditation thought up, and it's this place of something, we are potential, right? We're energy in motion, we're vibrating cells, and until you put it into action, you're just complete potential. So at all points, every single moment, your potential. And what we do with that energy is really what we represent. And so in that place, though, there's this second theory where if something is witnessed, if something is believed, if something is seen, it is true. And going with the concept of, we're going to drop into meditation, then we're just going to take a moment. And even if you don't know everybody in here in this whole room, we're going to do a practice of believing in everybody here, because really we all need somebody believing in us. And when you have that support, whether you have it energetically, someone standing right in front of you saying you can do it, you can rely on that to propel that potential, that energy inside of you into whatever you want to create in this life. So the fact that we have in a collective environment, a safe environment, the place to really just power each other up and ride this out. It could be months from now. You're going to go, bing, whoa, I'm feeling my group. It might be someone from this room. Again, the theory of quantum entanglement, lighting up, thinking about you, propelling you along. So we're going to get to it. You do not have to be an expert meditator, but I would prefer if you could do uncrossed legs. You can snack. Snacking is a meditation in itself. Don't worry about making this perfect, but if you want to full send, hands in the lap, close the eyes, and just start by taking a deep breath into the body and breathing out. And just take one more deep breath into the lungs. Breathing out. And we're just going to start at the base of the spine, the base of the pelvis, at our root chakra. It's a deep red earth energy. And I want you, just in your mind's eye, your imagination, to start seeing it swirl like a bicycle wheel and start pulling it out to about the 18 inches around your body. That's where your individual electromagnetic field resides. This chakra holds the data from when you were in utero to about 7 years old. It's how you define your tribe. Before we are individuals, 2 years old and younger, we don't know the difference between our parents and ourselves. So in that release, just release for the generations above you. Gratitude to whatever they brought you, because you're here, you're alive. Bring your awareness up to the sacral below the belly button, that orange light, expanding it to about the 18 inches around the body. This is our creative power, our self-expression, our masculine, our feminine, our sexuality. And just let that energy be seen and safe in this moment. Bringing your awareness up to the solar plexus, that yellow light a couple inches below the mid-rib cage, opening it up. And as you do, start to feel the hundreds, maybe thousands of places you're connected to, whether it's a conversation you had, your day, your to-do list after, anywhere where you didn't call your energy back in this whole life. And right now, just allow 100% of your frequency to move back into your physical body, back into the space, to be completely embodied in this time, in this present moment. And in that space, even taking a breath into every noise, sensation, anything you hear outside of this, maybe even the crumb in your tooth, it's all a part of it. Breathing in and breathing out. Bringing awareness up to your heart chakra, that green light, expanding it at heart center. Every time our heart beats, it sends out a frequency over 100 miles wide. You are your whole experience around you, and your experience around you is also creating you. Feel yourself within it all. And if you're someone who's sensitive to energy, take a moment just to send beautiful light to that heart space, relaxing it. Often in a sea of energy of people in this world, we can identify what is anxiousness or just busyness. So just find stillness. Bringing your awareness up to your throat chakra, that blue light, expanding it at the throat. Allowing that energy to flow away anytime you betrayed yourself through your words, your own sovereignty within you. Just find that peace. Bringing your awareness up to the third eye, that indigo light, expanding it between the brow, out to about the 18 inches around your head. And I want you right now just to observe your thoughts. Watch them pass by, one after another. Imagine like a train station, just trains passing by, but you're not hopping on. You do not judge them. They're on their own path, but they are not you. And from that observer point of view, bring that awareness up to your crown chakra at the top of the head, expanding that white light, letting it flow down over the face, the neck, the shoulders, down through the arms, over the chest, the torso, down through the legs, out the bottoms of the feet. Taking a deep breath into that space. Breathing out. And in this space, I just want you to go to a happy place in your mind's eye, going wherever it takes you, whether it's inside, outside, the beach, the mountains, maybe simply your bed or someplace you've never been. Find yourself there. And whatever it looks like, just start sending out belief, love to everybody in this room. A frequency that can be measured, that can be mapped already today in existence. Find that frequency. You know it already inside you, and send it out to everybody here. And start to feel it come back into you. Maybe smiling to yourself. Sending that smile out to everyone here together. Whatever they're feeling, knowing that you've been there too. And together, the potential is endless. And just take one more deep breath into the body. Breathing everything out of the lungs. Wiggling the fingers, the toes, the nose, blinking the eyes. And we'll begin now together. Whether you like it or not, we're together. Thank you all so much. Thank you. And we'll get started on a panel.
Thank you so much, Jess. And you are joining the next panel, so you can take a seat if you want. But I want to introduce and I feel so much calmer already after that, so I really appreciate it. I'm going to introduce you to Gabby Ulloa, who will be moderating this first panel. Yeah, give a round of applause for Gabby. Gabby is a Cuban-American freelance writer who has published in Architectural Digest, The Cut, Birdie, Refinery 29, the New York Times, and more. She covers Latinx culture, identity, mental health, relationships, style, and other lifestyle topics. Gabby, alongside Meadow, is also the co-host of Thoughts May Vary, a podcast that illuminates stories and lessons about personal development and mental health. And Meadow will be moderating the second panel. So, and the first panel is the Science of Breathwork, and Maddie and Gabby will introduce the speakers. Thank you. And yeah, if Millana and if Dara, you can join the stage. And who else is on? Oh, and Kingman. Get up here. Thank you.
Thanks, Sydney. Hi, guys. Thanks for being here. I'm Gabby. I'm really excited to be moderating today's panel. Does this one work? Oh,
Hello.
okay, we're here. Yes? Can you hear me? Good? Cool. Okay. So we'll start with Millana. Millana has been practicing meditation since the age of 4. She's become one of the leading voices in global wellness as a woman of color with Afro-Latina, Panamanian, American, and British roots. She speaks to audiences as diverse as her background. She's a healer and wellness entrepreneur with a passion for bringing healing to a global community of clients, followers, brands, celebrities, and even members of the royal family. Everyone could give a round of applause for her.
Hey, everyone.
Next, we have Dr. Ghahremani. Dr. Ghahremani is a research professor and neuroscientist in the Department of Psychiatry and Biobehavioral Sciences at UCLA. His research focuses on self-regulation, its brain basis, and how it is weakened in people with mental health problems and how it may be strengthened. He studied the impact of breath work on behavioral and brain measures of self-regulation in adolescents and adults who are healthy and those who have problems with addiction. Dr. Ghahremani, everyone.
Thank you.
Next, we have Ryan Kingman. Ryan Kingman is an entrepreneurial brand founder, recognized for his ability to visualize untapped opportunities in sports, entertainment, and creative cultures. He's a marketing leader with an instinctive knowledge of how to engage with youth and the creative class, merging sports, music, art, and culture into a programming and content mix that propels phenomenal sales growth, reinventing entire brand categories in the process. He found breathwork in 2014, right, Kingman? 2014's fair. And leads his friends in breathwork and ice therapy combos. Ryan Kingman, everyone. And then you all just met Jessica Stone. Jessica lives in Southern California, is a mother, has a deep love of the ocean, and loves exploring the energetic that exists beyond what our visual eyes can see. She's an author, teacher, and Harvard certified in psychedelic assisted therapies. She's been channeling soul guides since she was 12, traveling the world, leading retreats, speaking at universities, and working for Fortune 500 executives and celebrities. We have such an exciting panel today. I'm so excited to dive in. Has anybody here, I want to just start with a show of hands, practice breathwork? Engage in breathwork? Yeah? Okay, so some familiar, some unfamiliar. How we breathe can really influence a myriad of things, from how we focus, how we exit and enter sleep, pretty much all aspects of our mental and physical health. So I'm really excited to dig in and dive in with you all to hear all of the many benefits. So to start off, I'd love to hear about everyone's personal connection to breathwork. How did you find it? Also, there's just so many different ways to practice it. So it'd be great to hear how you practice it, how you integrate it, all of the above. Yeah.
Hey everyone, how you doing? I actually heard how you were all doing, so let's see if we can keep it going. As Gabby mentioned, I've been doing meditation since I was 4 years old. My grandmother taught me. When I thought I was napping, she told me to close my eyes and just walk out of my body. That's also known as astral projection. I didn't know until much later that that was not normal. And it wasn't until about 20 years later that I did breathwork for the first time. And I learned what I'll be sharing with you later on today. And I had a full, what we call DMT experience. You and I were talking about that, Kingman, where I just basically left my body all over again and realized that there was something really powerful in doing this specific type of breath. And I've never been the same. I've been sharing with people ever since. So I'm excited to share it with you all today.
So I first got interested in meditation when I was a grad student, and I had never meditated before, and I was curious about it. So I was reading some Buddhist psychology texts, and so I kind of had an idea from an intellectual point of view what it may be about. And it wasn't until when I actually started meditating, or when I did it for the first time, it was at a conference for neuroscientists and meditators. It was basically a conference designed for crosstalk between the two to understand the neuroscience of meditation. So my first meditation experience, as I think many people's first time meditation experience is, maybe has a little bit of disappointment because we have so much expectation of meditation for when you do it the first time. And a friend at the conference suggested that I try a breathing meditation workshop, which sounded interesting to me. And about a few months later, I did it. It's now called the Sky Breath Meditation Workshop, and it really changed my life because I just basically realized what it means to be deeply relaxed, like throughout the day in daily life, and how that can impact your life, both in terms of creativity, productivity, and relationships. And so I started incorporating these techniques into my research because at the time I was trying to see how different types of medications could help people with addictions. And wasn't having a lot of success with it. And I kind of wasn't very comfortable with the idea of medications replacing one drug with another, essentially. So I started investigating how these breathing techniques could impact patients that have substance use disorders. But I don't want to take too much time, so please go ahead.
Yeah, please keep going. Let us know more.
Oh, well, yeah, so long story short, I've started a research program to understand how breathwork, and in particular, the sky breathing technique, can impact impulsive behavior, self-control behavior, but also a sense of energy, how it can affect depression and anxiety. And I've actually specifically been focusing on youth, particularly adolescents. I study a school-based breathwork program called Sky Schools. And so far, we've been showing that it increases a sense of self-control. We hear these really wonderful statements from high school students saying that they feel like they have their life back, or they're in control of their emotions, which is something that's really huge in this age group, especially. So we have ongoing studies. At the moment, we have a study in Pomona, California, with about 95% Latino students who, as you may know, minorities face disproportionately, they face mental health challenges due to the inequities involved. But I think I'll leave it at that so we can let others go. Thank you.
That was awesome. Mine's less scientific. My introduction was kind of a hack. I love hearing that stuff though. Tests. Okay, I'm back. Mine was I was in Hawaii, and I had a mutual friend of mine asked me if I had heard of Wim Hof, and I was like, what's Wim Hof? And this is probably kind of a similar entry point for a lot of people, but he's like, go see this guy, his name is Kyborg, on the North Shore, and just tell him you want to do some Wim Hof breath work. And I was like, okay. I had no idea what it was, and this guy Kyborg is kind of a big, intimidating, kind of an enforcer in the North Shore surf community. But I called him up and I said, hey, Dylan said to come see you about some Wim Hof. And so he's like, yeah, cruise over. And so I go over to his house, and he's this big Hawaiian dude. And he's like, go get some ice on the way here. Get big bags of ice. We're going to do an ice bath too. I was like, okay, whatever. And so I show up, and his he had just kind of recently been introduced to this as well with Wim Hof. And so went to his house, brought some ice, and he's from Hawaii, so they speak pidgin. He's like, "Hey, bro, lay on the ground. There's a towel." And I lay down. He's like, and he just starts breathing. He's like, "Do what I do." He's like, and I literally had no introduction other than just doing this breath work. And we did this, I think, 4 rounds of Wim Hof, and I had the most intense psychedelic experience from just breathing. Like all I was doing is breathing, and didn't even know what I was doing. I was just following his lead. And then I kind of we laid there for a few minutes, and he's like, "Okay, bro, get in the ice." And so then we jump in this ice bath that was so fucking cold. And I've surfed in cold water. I feel like I have can get down, but it was freezing cold, and I stayed in it for 3 minutes. And afterwards I got out, and I felt like I was levitating between the breath work and the impact it had on my psyche, my physical body. It just blew my mind, literally, figuratively. And so I was just set me on a path, and that was my first sort of foray into breath work, was through Wim Hof. And then I ended up meeting Wim Hof and going to a seminar and doing a bunch of stuff. And I can't shut up about doing breath work. I use it every day. If you're a friend of mine, they're like, "Oh, here he comes again." I'm like Kyborg to other people. "Okay, lay down, start breathing." So that's my entry point into Wim Hof. Or is it breath work? Sorry.
Okay, mine works. Let's see. I took my first breath January 9th, 1985. So I've been breathing for 38 years. But about that, so what kind of, I guess, got me into breath work in the way I was certified in it. I was a C-section baby. And there's this theory that when you're not picking to be into the world, when you go through the vaginal canal, an actual chemical reaction happens in the brain. And so for C-section babies, that reaction doesn't happen, right? So you're kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I call it backwards ghost. And so I got into breath work, free diving, like down in Tulum, trying to recalibrate that sensation that I was having. And it changed everything. And I'm fascinated with breath because I hold my whole ethos of self through it, because it's this organ that, whether you like it or not, is moving for you, right? Our heart beats for us. Our tummy does its thing. Our liver, I don't know what it does something, but you get what I'm saying. Our lungs, just like life, we have the ability to participate in it and also control it, which I find so fascinating. So we can control our breath, and we also can sit back and just let it ride it some way like that. So in our life, it expands and it contracts constantly. We're on top of the world, and then everything crashes, and it's this expansion and contraction, and so really going into that place of, okay, if I know anything in life, I can come back to my breath, whatever your breath work practice looks like, or just breathing. And it's really been I guess, shelter for me in this life. That's my experience with breathing.
Thank you. Yes, we're projecting today. Breathwork really just seems to have, honestly, endless functions for so many different things, from trauma release, conscious breathing, stress release, anxiety. How can breath serve us in these different moments? Can you speak to some of those specific benefits? Just go around. Mom, you want to start?
Okay, I was like, I feel like the doctor's doing everything. I'll start.
Yes.
I think that's the reason. So, I've actually been training teachers how to teach breath.
Hello.
Couple of years.
For about 10 years, I've been teaching breathwork now. And I think what's really important to know as a teacher and as someone who is working with a breathwork facilitator is that it can bring up some of your trauma. And it's really important for a teacher to be trauma informed, especially when working in groups. So all of us have different histories and different forms of trauma, but when we're talking about what is known as big T trauma, which I don't really agree with, but when we talk about things that people are still experiencing on a daily basis because it's gone unresolved, breath work can actually help you bring those things to resolution if you have someone that can work with you in a safe way. And so for me, that's one of the really big benefits of breath work. The practice that I use is my own approach of what's known as holotropic breathing, which is 2 inhales all through the mouth, 1 exhale out of the mouth, and we'll do it later. And what we find when we do this, it actually activates what's known as the parasympathetic system. So one of the ways I like to remember that is like if you think of like a paramedic bringing you back to life, parasympathetic is like it's bringing you out of your survival mode. It's bringing you out of fight or flight. It's bringing you into what's called the rest and digest state, right? So if we're living constantly in the sympathetic, which is fight or flight, we are constantly afraid, feeling like everything is urgent, anxious, even if we're unaware. That survival mode starts to deteriorate our bodies, our minds, our relationships, everything, right? We all know what that is like. Am I the only one? We all know. But when we start to get into the parasympathetic, we rest and digest, that's when we start to actually see our life from a wider lens. So when you're literally running away from a bear, for example, your mind and your actual vision start to zoom in on the exit. You're only looking to get out. Well, if you're living like that all the time, you're seeing life that way. And when you do breath work, it helps you to literally widen your vision, like literally in life, but also with your eyes closed and going to that deeply relaxed state, you start to see your own life from a higher perspective. So even the most traumatic events that someone has been through, you can actually make new meaning of that event, right? So let's say you had a car accident. You might have all these stories about how scary that was, which is real, right? You might have all these memories which are real, but if you start to actually reprocess them through a practice like breath work, you can now have new meanings, like that car accident woke me up out of my relationship that I was in that was really unhealthy, or that car accident helped me see how fast in life I was going and how I need to slow it down. Have you ever had circumstances like that where you start to see things from that higher perspective? That's what breath work can do. And that's what getting in the parasympathetic can get you into, not just from a physical standpoint where you actually relax your body and you start to let some of your organs and your muscles be in their normal healthy state, but you also start to change the way you see yourself, your life, and the world. And that's, for me, why breathwork is so revolutionary and why it's so important for trauma.
No, thank you. Yeah, I mean that's exactly how I also view the way that breath work works, in the sense that and I think you alluded to this too, that it's essentially taking advantage of the autonomic nervous system to co-opt one of the things that is both automatic, and we also have control over, to bring this calm, relaxed state, to increase this parasympathetic activity. And I just wanted to follow up with what you said about PTSD. There are 2 studies now on effects of these breathing meditation workshops on veterans with PTSD. What's remarkable about these studies is that not only does the breath work improve their symptoms, their PTSD symptoms, which can include improved sleep, they show less of a startle response, less anxiety. But when they were measured a year later, after they took a 5-day workshop, they still showed these reduced symptoms. So there's something about engaging in these really powerful breathing techniques that has kind of a sustained effect on the body. It's almost like a switch happens in the nervous system. We were really surprised about that in the scientific community, because there are not that many things that will sustain when you don't really practice it. So if you don't exercise for a long time, you'll lose your muscle mass. But in this case, there does seem to be this sustained effect.
I can't remember the question specifically. Oh,
Trauma, anxiety.
so yeah, I kind of find it as a tool that I engage with. I mean, daily, but sometimes it's to upregulate, to get myself motivated, to help me do something, to enhance a situation I'm in, say it's working out or something like that, or oftentimes to downregulate and get at myself, slow my roll if I'm stressed out or if I'm trying to go to bed, or calm myself. I can use the same breath, just a different method of it to calm myself down. And so it's this tool, just like food or anything else that we have that we use for our body, that you can control. You can call on it when you want. You can utilize it however you want, and it's up to you to, use it. But a lot of people just don't do it. A lot of people just breathe shallow all day long, and they wonder why they're maybe tired or they're, neurologically things aren't connecting. And so I think even just to be conscious, hopefully after this here today, just thinking about your breath is really important. Just stopping and even just taking 3 deep breaths can so help any situation you're in. You get off a bad phone call, you're like, okay, it's not that bad. Take a breath, take 2 breaths, and that sort of tool is just such a helpful mechanism for anybody who breathes. We all breathe, so just use it.
I think you guys answered it beautifully. So maybe I'll just add some humor. You should try breathwork if you haven't, because I call it budget travels. So if you don't have money to go anywhere, if you do some breathwork, you'll get launched. And so it's a great way for cheap travel. No, but I think you guys did answer absolutely beautiful. And being a mother, a business owner, and whatever other roles I play in life, I use it to basically regulate into every situation I am. So to make sure myself is fully here. So taking a couple breaths. So even if you're starting to work out, stop before, take a couple breaths and fully arrive. And then when you go to pick up the phone and it's a text message you love or don't love, taking a few breaths and fully arriving into it, so you're using your whole system, would be my 2 cents to add of an easy way to integrate it into life. So yeah.
Thank you. I want to shift a little bit and talk about the idea of healing trends, because I feel like whenever we see new research that comes up about trends, I don't know about you guys, but I always feel like it becomes a very this or that, black and white narrative. This is out, now this is in. And we saw some recent research from Stanford that showed that 5 minutes of breath work was actually proved to be much more powerful than meditation when it came to improving mood and reducing stress. Are there benefits to breath work over meditation when it comes to these certain challenges and goals? What are those benefits? Can we integrate the practices together? Is one in and is one out? What's the T when it comes to breath work and meditation?
I don't know if we're just gonna keep going in this order, but I'll just make it easy for us. Well, something that I find really funny about the trends, because I think you're so right. I've been in the wellness industry for over a decade now, and I always laugh about this because I'm like, you guys, this stuff is ancient. This is not new. So if anybody tells you that breath work, like the new breath work thing that they're doing, is the new thing, it's not true. This stuff has been happening for thousands of years. Now we're remembering it. Now we're finding it again. And yes, there are people like Wim Hof or Millana Snow that have their own approach to it and they play their own music to it. But this has been forever, and it comes from indigenous cultures from all over the world. So I think it's important to note that. And one of the things that's really exciting about that is that this is in your blood. This is in your deep unconscious mind. Everybody has the power and the ability to do breath work and to meditate, to relax themselves deeply, because your ancestors have been doing it longer than there was the word wellness, right? From all over the world, no matter where you come from. So this is a part of how human beings have been able not just to survive, but to innovate, to create new things in the world, to have big ideas. So I think it's really important for us to remember that what we're doing is remembering, not jumping on trends. Who you are is the person who is here to help propel humanity forward. And these are tools that have always been around that we're reminding you to use. And if you can think of it that way, then you won't jump on a bunch of trends, but you'll use these as tools to bring yourself to new levels of awareness.
Yeah, I think using them as tools is a really good way of putting it, because you have a set of tools that you will use a particular tool for a particular reason or for a particular issue. Um, and to say that, breath work is in and this other technique is out, well, it really depends on kind of where you want to be, what kind of balance you want to have in life. And for me, what I found helpful about breath work, and in particular the sky breathing meditation that I practice, is that it naturally brought me into a meditative state. So that first time meditator experience that I had that I was struggling with, I recognize that a lot of people will have that experience and then just say, oh, this didn't work for me and meditation isn't for me. And they'll kind of cast it aside. But what I noticed about the breath work is that it sort of eases your mind and body into a meditative state so that you can just naturally continue with meditation. So I think the combination of a lot of these techniques can be really powerful. And different techniques, people say that meditation is a little bit like saying sports. There are lots of different sports out there. And the same way, there are different types of meditations, and they will tap into different aspects of our mind. So, for example, mindfulness may be more about enhancing attention or increasing this faculty of attention. And other techniques may be more about kind of having an expansive awareness. So in any case, I think breath work can be connected to any of these techniques in the sense that it kind of brings you naturally into the present moment, where you can then start to naturally engage in these different techniques.
Dr. Ghahremani, I was wondering if you could speak a little bit to what's actually happening to the body when we're practicing breath work.
Yeah, so it's complicated, and it's still very much there's still a lot of research being conducted on this. There is different levels of which we can look at it. So in terms of just the simple gas exchanges that happen when we change our breath, so the oxygen, carbon dioxide exchange, and it's really only recently that we're starting to look more closely at the neural circuitry that's involved in changing the breath. So one thing we know is that in the brain, it's not that just say one part of the brain is linked to your breath. It turns out that there are many brain regions where their activity is oscillating with our breathing. So this was kind of an interesting discovery just in the last 10 years that sure, there is some synchrony between our breathing and the cell firing in our brain. But what's also been found is that breath work actually increases this synchrony. So it's almost like when you're riding a bike and initially you may not fully have the momentum to have this full balance, but once you get going, you create this rhythm that kind of perpetuates itself. But the important thing about some of these studies is that when you control the breath, as we do with breath work, you're increasing the synchrony. You're increasing the synchrony between the cells. So it's almost like across different brain areas, you're finding more crosstalk because there's a common rhythm that these different brain areas are following. But to answer your question, we really don't know. There's so much that's happening in those cases, and we only really know a small fraction.
Kingman, you want to talk a little?
Are they trends? Yeah, I mean, there's trends in everything. I think you look at all aspects of what you put under wellness, fitness, nutrition, sleep, meditation, mindfulness, breath work, all of them there's a version of it that could be constituted as a trend or could be, somebody trying to make money from it. There's an app for everything these days. But at the end of the day, trend or not, these are proven modalities for human existence. Nutrition, we have to eat, we have to sleep. The better you sleep, the better you perform. The more you move, the better you feel. If you can slow your mind down, if you can breathe, like all these things are, trend or not, they're effective. And I think the only way to kind of test that is to not do them. Like try not to eat nutrition or eat well, try not to work out, try not to breathe, try not to meditate, and see how you feel. So I think that kind of bucks the trend. Sure, there's going to be people monetizing it. There's going to be brands that are established around these things for good or for bad. I mean, a lot of it is for good. I think at the end of the day, if it's bringing awareness in a meaningful way to especially a younger demographic, then how could it hurt? And sometimes trend has a bit of a stigma attached to it, but I think trend can also be very, very good.
I think everyone answered beautifully.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of trends, I actually read recently. Now, apparently, the thing to say is not I saw it on TikTok, it's I read it in the New York Times. So I've been reading in the New York Times a lot about mouth taping. And that's also been gaining a lot of popularity as well. How does this work? If you guys could explain it. Do any of you sleep with mouth tape? You do? Okay. How's that experience for you? Let's hear about it.
So it started as a trend. No, I was doing some breath work, and I was sitting there talking with the guy I was doing it with, and he was telling me about this book called, I believe it was Breath. And at first I thought he was talking about this book, Breathe, by Hicks and Gracie, which I read. And I was like, oh, I read that book. And he's like, really? Oh, how good is it? And we started like vibing. And then he's like, yeah, and this thing about mouth taping. I was like, wait, what was the book you read? And turns out it was another book, and I have not read it yet, but I've heard great reviews, and it's effectively just about the health benefit of breathing and breathing right. And Andrew Huberman did a recent podcast about this specifically, about breath and taping your mouth. And there's a lot, and you're going to speak much better to this than I am, but I'm just like the guy who like tries shit because it's trendy, I guess. But I tape my mouth shut with just some medical tape, and I slept amazing. I don't normally have I think I'm a mouth breather by trait, and I had this amazing night's sleep. And then I took off the tape and I had all this residue, and I was like, oh, I think I used the wrong stuff. So recently I ordered some like mouth tape meant for breathing on Amazon, and there are these kind of strips that has a hole in it so you can breathe a little bit through there. It's a pain in the ass to put on with this obnoxious mustache, but it really helps. And I've had a couple moments where I maybe got congested in the middle of the night and woke up and like, gah, and like ripped it off, and I was like, whoa, what happened? But all in all, I feel really it's been beneficial. No, but it's you could be constituted as trend right now, but at the end of the day, if that's something that is beneficial to do more nasal breathing because of all this scientific benefit that I can't expand upon, but I'm doing it.
I just want to jump on that because, Gabby, I've been wanting to do this. This is actually a trend that I want to get on. But, it's funny, James Nestor wrote that book, Breathe, and I was really scared because I have very small nostrils. I don't know if anybody else has. And a fun fact is, even though I teach breath work, I actually have breathing problems, and it's one of the reasons why I got into breath work. James Nestor talks at length about taping your mouth, not just when you sleep, but also when he was running. So if you want to try that at the Dogpound, let me know how that goes. But apparently, and I'm going to mess this up, but in the book, he mentions how Native American mothers used to put their fingers over their babies' mouths when their babies were mouth breathing because they knew that that wasn't the best way for their babies to breathe. So it was like the original mouth tape. And apparently, doing research all these years later, they're seeing that that's really important, that babies start to learn at, as young as infancy to breathe through our noses. So if you ever want to learn more about that, James Nestor's Breathe book talks about that at length.
Dr. Ghahremani, you want to take it away on the science of
I'll
this?
just say a little bit about the difference between nasal breathing and mouth breathing. They're both fine. I think some people say, oh, you should definitely breathe through your nose. But it's fine. I mean, breathing happens on its own, whether you do it through your nose or your mouth. But there are some neuroscience studies showing that there's something particular about nasal breathing that that triggers this synchrony that I was mentioning earlier. So, and somehow that doesn't happen when you're breathing through your mouth. And so it may be that during sleep, which is a period that the brain is going through this restorative process where it's sort of getting rid of things that you don't want in your brain, that this sort of synchrony is actually helping the brain restore in that way. The other thing about nasal breathing, which is interesting, is that there is this yogic practice called alternate nostril breathing, which essentially means, some of you are probably familiar with it, where you breathe in through one nostril and you exhale through the other nostril, then inhale through that nostril, exhale through the other nostril. So you're kind of breathing one nostril at a time, so to speak. And what some researchers, they were actually researching olfaction, or the sense of smell, and they accidentally discovered that somehow when they had animals breathe in this way, that they had more synchrony between the two sides of their brain. So it was one of these accidental scientific discoveries. And when it was discovered, the yoga community was so excited to hear about it, because it was this kind of confirmation of this ancient practice that people have been doing.
Anything you want to add? Yeah, we don't tape. It's fine. I don't tape either, but I'm curious about it. I know for me, it can feel overwhelming when we're first hearing or learning about a new healing tool that maybe we haven't dabbled in before. So I would love to hear some of the different breathwork practices, and maybe some easy for all breathwork exercises that we could all walk away with remembering today. If there's one or two that you guys practice that you want to share, and I know Millana will walk us through a really easy one that we can take away with us today.
An easy one is when you notice you're in that state of heightened, where you're basically not participating in your highest self. Just to start breathing through the mouth, through the nose, however you can, and start witnessing yourself as, this is going to sound weird, but an animal. And what is happening is your body is telling you something's off. So to start actually going deeper into that breath, however, you don't need to do it anyway perfect. Don't worry about that. And just start observing yourself as an animal, actually beautifully by design, creating healing in that moment. So that's my quick tip.
There's, no shortage of information out there on breath work and examples of it. Just Google it. I think for me, two that I've recently encountered are Awaken, which is Awaken with an O. A guy named Lucas Mack and his partner Hella Weston have started, and they do really deep work. And they have a website where they offer some free breathing courses. And then another one out of Canada is called Othership, and they have an app that does some really unique breath work with music and this sort of journey that you go on. It's a lot of fun and a different kind of approach.
The technique that I'm most familiar with is the sky breathing technique. It stands for Sudarshan Kriya Yoga. And it's really a collection of different techniques. They're based in the yoga tradition. It's a fairly long practice, so it's not something you would do like if you're walking down the street or driving a car or something. But to me, that is really powerful, and that technique is the one that had these sustained effects in those veterans with PTSD. But just on an everyday level, I think the discrete breathing technique that I use is called the Ujjayi technique, which I think a lot of people also learn in yoga classes, which it inherently slows down the breath because it's creating resistance in the back of the nostrils. And I find that incredibly immediately relaxing, and it's something I can do anywhere. Like if I'm in a meeting and I know that there's some tense issues that are going to be discussed, I can just practice that even while the meeting is going on. So yeah.
Lana, you want to take it away on this one? I think it's the time. The time is now.
Are y'all ready? All right. So just a couple little things. We're going to keep it really short. I probably have about 2 minutes to get into it. Okay. But I want to give you guys something that you can take home with you. This is a gift that I'm giving you today. Okay. So I want you to use it for your benefit. So I want you to think about something that you'd like to give energy or something you'd like to transform in a positive direction. Okay. And we're gonna dig into whatever that is personally. You don't have to tell anybody during this practice. Does that sound good? Okay, so let's go ahead and close our eyes. Everyone, I'm gonna stand up because that's how I like to do it. All right, so you're safe. I'm gonna watch you. So go ahead and close your eyes. We're gonna hold the space. I promise I'll make sure that nothing crazy goes on. It's gonna be 2 minutes. So while I'm talking, see if you can just feel the way you're breathing right now. We're not gonna change anything. Just notice, how are you breathing in this moment? Beautiful. Now slowly, I want you to start to notice all the sounds in the environment. So you're gonna hear cars driving by, some people speaking. Instead of pushing that away, I actually want you to hear it more deeply, like listen to all the sounds. That's it. Just listen. So this is what I call the first layer of presence. The deeper we go, the better it gets. You don't want to push anything away. You want everything to just be what it is as you breathe. So just listen to me while we go deeper. You're going to breathe in through your mouth. It's going to be 2 inhales, 1 exhale. When you breathe into that first breath, it's going to be all the way down into your lower belly, so your belly balloons out. Then you'll take a second breath into your heart, and then you'll exhale it out. Let's try it now. You can even go a little bit slower if you'd like, but do it at your own pace. That's it. That's it. I want to hear you. And you can go at a different pace if you want, but the point is, I want you to go as deep and as wide as you can. Exhaling it out. Let's make sure we hear you exhale it out. That's it. Okay. So keep that going. Some of you might even start to feel some emotions coming up already. That's okay. Just keep breathing. You might feel tingles in your body. That's okay. Just keep breathing. We're only going to do it for about 2 more minutes. Breathing into the lower belly, into the heart, exhaling out. So now this is where your body's going to start to shift. So I encourage you to keep your eyes closed. It's really easy to open your eyes in this moment, but keep them closed because something's coming up right now. So I want you to bring up that thing that you want to transform. Bring it into your mind as you breathe. Every time you breathe in, I want you to send love, kindness, hope, faith, whatever positive emotion you can to that intention, to that thing in your life. And every time you exhale out, I want you to exhale anything that's negative surrounding that particular event, that particular circumstance. All right, let's do that. So you might notice that you're exhaling fear. So let's exhale fear. That's it. You might notice that you're exhaling regret. Let's exhale regret. And when you breathe in twice, let's breathe in more love, more patience for yourself. And when you exhale out, let's exhale doubt. Keep it going, just a few more breaths here. You might be feeling a little hot. You're almost done. Breathing into the lower belly, let that belly balloon outward. What do you need? Can you give it to yourself right now when you breathe in? What do you need to let go? Can you exhale it out? That's it. Now, I know you have a lot to let go of because you're human, so I want to hear that exhale a little louder. Yeah, that's it. Now, some of you need to give yourself a little bit more grace. So let's breathe that in. I need a little bit more patience. Acceptance. 2 more. In, out. 1 more. In, out. Exhaling out the loudest breath you can. Coming back to your normal everyday breath with your eyes still closed. Now this right here is what we call the magic moment. So I want you to feel your body. Notice how your body feels all the way down to your toes. you have had a shift in your perspective and in your state. Your physical state has shifted. So I want you just to notice that. Take a moment to see how just 2 minutes of giving yourself more love and more oxygen, time to release what is not working, how just 2 minutes did what you're feeling right now. So bring that subject, that thing that you were thinking about, back up to your front of your awareness. And just notice what your relationship with it is right now. And if you have some emotions coming up, that's okay. Some tears are coming, that's okay. Before you open your eyes, I want you to make yourself a promise about how you're going to give yourself more of what you need and what supports you. And only you know what that is. Bring that up to your mind right now. How can you do that this week? We have a whole week ahead of us, the last couple of days of February. How can you give yourself more of what you need and let go of what isn't working anymore? It's as easy as exhaling. When you're ready, you can start to move your fingers and your toes, and you can open your eyes. Do you feel a little shift? A little different? That's just 2 minutes. Usually I teach that for an hour and a half. So you can imagine people get real wild. But I want you all to have that. Anytime you're about to go into something where you feel intimidated or even excited, do that in your car. Just 2 minutes. If you want to do the whole hour and a half, come see me, millanasnow.com. I got you. But this is free anytime, and it will shift anything that's going on in here and in here. And it's as simple as that. I hope that was helpful. Thank you, guys.
That's so good. Thanks, Millana. Now that we're all feeling grounded and present, I want to open up the floor to any questions from the audience. Anyone has anything they want to ask our amazing panelists? Michael?
Resistance, like a few minutes. Breathing is kind of counterintuitive in a way. So like, how do you like? I don't want to say push past the resistance, but almost ease into it. So
Yes.
out of 2 minutes, I'm like, oh shit, this is not normal, or I feel normal.
Yes.
How do you persevere?
That's a great question. Thank you for asking that. I love that question because everybody has that at some point when they're doing this breathwork practice. And what I always tell people is to actually lean into that discomfort. Because under that discomfort is something that typically we've been suppressing that actually needs to be expressed. And for a lot of people, it's something as simple as emotion, right? Like a tear needs to come out, which by the way, like tearing up is just our body cleansing ourselves of those stressor chemicals. So a lot of times when we have that heat, it's because there's something that wants to come up that we have a pattern of suppressing and pushing back down. And a lot of times, even in something like this where it's just 2 minutes, I saw some of y'all, you were feeling like some tears might come out and you're kind of pushing them back. And the reason why is because we have all these stories about what's allowed and what's appropriate, right? Like, I shouldn't be crying in just 2 minutes in this place. So what's really great about practicing this, even just for a couple of minutes a day, especially if you're at home by yourself, is that you can start to notice what your patterns are of actually suppressing what needs to be released. And so that's exactly what was happening for you. It may not have been tears, by the way, it could have been laughter. One of the things that I find out of all these years is that what people are most afraid of is not sadness or grief, but it's joy. That sometimes we are actually suppressing being happy. So just feel into that. And I know that you weren't the only one here, so thank you for speaking that. We all have these patterns that we were taught as children and even as adults of what's allowed and what's not realizing that that's actually keeping us from living a full life. And breathwork is just one of those tools that can help you see yourself a little bit more clearly and start to live more fully by allowing it to come up in the practice. Does that help? Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions?
As an athlete, I find myself in high leverage situations, and one thing that
up on you. And there are times where I'm not really thinking about it and the game doesn't speed up on me, but then there are other times where it just feels like it's moving a million miles an hour and I have trouble just breathing, you know? Are there any like techniques, situations that recommend for myself or anybody else here?
To be honest, I'm not sure. It's a really good question, and I think that the research still needs to be done in terms of what would help in those particular situations. Because you're in this, I'm assuming you're in a state where your sympathetic system is really activated, and you're having to, maneuver a lot. And so I'm sure there is a good technique that you could use in those circumstances. One thing that might help is to offline, outside of those contexts, is to start doing these breathing techniques, because as you do those techniques, it actually builds the muscles that are involved in breathing, and so it may give you some more flexibility, and also kind of entrain your mind a little more to can be more aware of your breath and be more calm. So one thing that's really kind of interesting about doing these breathing techniques on a daily basis, which maybe we can all attest to, is that you suddenly spontaneously find yourself in situations where maybe normally you would have been stressed, or other people around you are stressed, but you don't find yourself feeling that way. So there's something about the consistent practice that acts as a buffer for you.
Yeah, I was also going to add that when we were first sending astronauts to go to the moon back in the 60s, I think it was, it wasn't actually that we were looking for astronauts who could fly the best or had the best technical skills. They were looking for who could regulate their emotions and their body. And they actually were looking for who in the most extreme circumstances could keep their heartbeat below 100. So when we think about that, and I would imagine that you're in some pretty intense situations in the sport that you play, I kind of would imagine that being launched to the moon can have a similar effect in some of these ways, right? Where you really have to keep yourself really even keeled and keep your heart rate down. So like the doctor was saying, I think that practicing breath work, and I would love for you to do this practice that we did on a regular basis, will help you to regulate your system on call. So I have this this kind of like tricky little reminder for you that I'd like to give you guys. It's called CPR, which is confront, process, and regulate. And I like to think about that when I'm facing something that's really tough. So I confront it like, oh, I have this person running at me. I'm assuming football, maybe. I don't know. I'm guessing. Soccer? I don't know. Let's just say you play football. I have somebody running at me. Okay, I'm confronting that. That person's in front of me. Now I need to go to my processing. What do I need to do? Because I have to know where to go, what to do, what's the play, right? Now I must regulate before I can actually execute. Because if I don't, I'm going to drop the ball. I'm going to do the wrong thing. So when you're in these situations, you want to be able to do those three things instantly. And the way that you can do that is knowing how to regulate after those first two things. Breath work, practicing that even just for a couple of minutes a day, will get you to automatically know how to regulate yourself. So you could literally be running and start doing these deeper breaths into your belly, deeper breaths into your heart. Okay, now my heart rate's going down. I'm regulating. That allows you to do what you would already do from practice, which is, okay, this person's running at me and I have this play. So the regulating is going to be a key thing for you. I hope that's helpful.
It's more to calm myself. What's the difference between what we just experienced, where it kind of felt this intensity and almost lightheadedness, versus kind of using your breath to center and ground yourself? Like when you use both, is it for everyone to try both, or do some people gravitate towards one or another? Or is there not?
Well, I think we should also note that we're in a group of people that we don't know. A lot of very good-looking people, by the way. So we're like, am I okay? Is this all right? Right? Like the environment matters a lot. So the way that this might have happened if it was just me and you might have been different if it's in this environment. So that's one thing to think about. And it's really important to keep that in mind when you're doing something like this breath work, because you've got something like box breathing, for example, which is almost always going to regulate you almost instantly, or the alternating nostril breath, as you were describing. But holotropic breath work, or what I call integrative energy healing breath work, is going to bring you to a more heightened state almost immediately. And one of the reasons why is because you are over oxygenating your blood like that, the blood in your brain cells like that. So you're actually starting to access new parts of the brain that you wouldn't typically access. When you're in fight or flight, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong here, it's really scary to talk about this in front of a doctor, researcher. But when you're in fight or flight, from what I understand, your brain starts sending blood to your arms and legs. Is that correct, doctor? Okay, great. And when you are not in flight and you're in the rest and digest, which is parasympathetic, which is what this is to do, like what we're pushing you towards, you're actually starting to now send more oxygenated blood to your brain. So what I find is really helpful if you start to feel anxious when you're doing this pattern of breath is to slow down the breath, which is telling your body, I'm safe. There's no wolves or bears chasing me. I'm okay. So that's what I was saying, take your own pace. What happens a lot in big groups is that you start to take on the pace of other people. So whenever you can, whether you're doing it with friends or with a therapist or anybody, just see if you can really slow down when you start to feel that anxiousness rise. But what's really cool is that if you can allow yourself to be with that anxious energy, which might be there kind of on the regular, then you can tell your brain, hey, oh my gosh, we can overcome this feeling by just being present with it. And so I don't know if it's really that it was this group, but I think that in general, it's really helpful just to notice that and see what you feel like at home.
I think that's all the time we have for today. I want to thank you so much for our amazing panelists, for their thoughtful insights. I learned so much from you guys too. Thank you guys for coming, for supporting such an incredible organization like AIM, and for your amazing questions, and for taking the time on a Sunday. Thanks. Yeah.